This crowd rises to its feet. Okoro slammed it home. Garland left wing, 3-ball. Perfect! Garland went to the lane, lobbed to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Roan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. While the first half was not the prettiest, but the Cleveland Cavaliers found a way to adjust at halftime and walk away with a dominant win over the New York Knicks, who they have now outscored by a combined 62 points this season through 3 games. Joining me today is my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I really was grumpy in the first half. I was disappointed. Sometimes you have games where they don't go the way you're hoping they're going to go as a fan, and you feel frustrated, and then the team kind of can't win you back in the second half. You know, you're just grumpy, and you're like, yeah, I don't care what you do in the second half. I'm still mad at you. You know, It's like you're mad at your significant other or something. And I kind of was like, in my brain was thinking that was going to be this game. I was really disappointed by, another team getting handsy with the Cavs, getting overly physical with the Cavs, throwing them off their rhythom, forcing them, baiting them into turnovers, all that fun stuff. And then, not only did they take control of the game in the second half, they took control of the game in the exact same way that New York took control of the game on the defensive end of the floor, which was they started holding, grabbing, pushing, shoving, beating the crap out of them in a respectful, healthy way. They stopped getting their asses kicked on the offensive glass. They gang rebounded, even when it wasn't perfect. They were there to help each other out. So when one of the bigs couldn't get their hands on the ball, they were able to tip it to someone else. They just really answered the bell with physicality in a way that I was really encouraged by. I think if they had just, blown the doors off of the Knicks with offense, which they certainly did. They had a great offensive second half. They put up 38 and then 33 points in the third and fourth quarters. But I do really feel like the combined 45 second half points was what actually told the story of that game for New York.
Yeah, and I think, the second half story came down to how they played defensively, right? When you start getting stops, that helps generate momentum for your offense. I thought they played more decisively. I wasn't as low on the first half as you. Our little kind of running group chat that we have, I won't name who wasn't watching in the first half, but they said, just tell me the story. What's going on? Is it as bad as the score? And I said, no, it's not as bad as the score. There's things that they could clean up, but I felt pretty confident that they were going to take a lead. I actually thought they were going to take a lead by halftime. It took a couple minutes into the third quarter for that to actually come to fruition.
But there was a difference in style of play, first half to second half, no?
There was a difference in style of play. There was a difference, in effort. I thought the biggest difference between first half and second half was defensive connectivity. Like the 50-50 plays and stuff like that, I thought it was already starting to tilt back towards their favor as the first half progressed. But I really felt like the defensive continuity was a big difference, because really after the first substitution pattern in the first quarter, like when it went to the Garland Allen lineup there, I thought that they started to find a little bit of a groove offensively. I thought coming into this game, to start the game, it felt very similar to some of the Boston games where they just did not look assertive. They looked a little out of rhythm offensively. They got good shots, but it didn't feel like, hey, the ball was humming for 12, 15 seconds here, and then we got a good shot. It was kind of awkward dribbling around. Someone created a little bit of space. We got a nice clean look. It didn't go down, but it never really felt like there was that rhythm. When the Cavs have it going, it is just so obvious. Like there is so much energy with the passes, the way that they're cutting off ball. I didn't feel that energy, and it really did take about 6 minutes into this game for them to start to find that groove and to find that rhythm offensively.
And I do think it was another one of those times where the defense kind of, it was clear the Knicks game plan was like, hey, we're shorthanded. We don't have a lot of our offensive talent on the floor. We don't have a lot of the guys that, like Brunson obviously is the engine for their team. But, they didn't even have Deuce McBride.
Right.
They didn't have Mitchell Robinson coming off the bench to play backup 5 for them. So, I do think their game plan was, let's try to chop the game up and make it ugly. And I thought, those first 4 minutes, the Cavs were getting, taking that bait. They were throwing sloppy passes. They were not playing as crisp as they needed to. And I think you're right that first sub pattern was when the offense started to shift, where, the first 5 to 10 seconds of the possession could be choppy, but they were patient and calm and weren't getting sped up. And, they had in the back half of that first quarter 4 or 5 or 6 wide open threes in the corners for guys they want taking those shots.
Yeah, DeAndre Hunter in particular felt really good in that stretch.
And Merrill got a couple really, really clean looks there too. So I did feel like they answered that. And then once the Knicks realized they couldn't just junk the game up, they had to drop back into their shell. And that shell defense is just very easy to beat up at the end of the day, So I thought the offensive process was really, really strong. I do think, it was the perfect storm. I mean, the Knicks start the game 7 of 9 from 3. They go 4 of 27 the rest of the way. From 3, they end up shooting 30.6% from 3 in a game that they started 7 of 9.
The ESPN Knicks broadcast brought up that I think that they said that they were 15 of 20 or something on contested shots in the first half, and that was just very due for regression. And I really thought that to start the game, it was clear that they were comfortable sagging off of Josh Hart. They were comfortable sagging off DeLon Wright. Let's kind of jam up the lanes and force them to beat us from the outside. And I'm somewhat okay with the approach. I prefer playing in, your base defense, play it straight up, especially with the personnel that we have. You don't really need to cheat a whole bunch. You already have tremendous backline defenders in Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, Max Strus, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell. They're all going to play their part defensively. I prefer kind of playing it straight up because it felt like we're sagging off of these guys. Now these questionable 3-point shooters have hit a couple, and it almost seemed like they were double guessing what they were doing defensively. Should I really be, sagging off of DeLon Wright or Josh Hart, or should I be staying with them? All of a sudden, you're almost putting yourself into rotation unnecessarily in those instances. And I felt like there just wasn't that defensive continuity. And I thought second half, they played it more straight up. All right, we're just going to play, pretty solid man-to-man defense. We're going to trust our guys to do their part. And in particular, when the Knicks had to go to their bench at times, or, they had to take Karl Anthony Towns off the court, they just weren't able to generate any offense. And the Cavs were able to put athleticism in off the bench with DeAndre Hunter, Isaac Okoro, and really, make them feel that defensively.
Yeah, I think it was DH in our Discord who was talking about how the sagging off to gunk up the Knicks offense doesn't work if you're in rotation every single possession, because Wright might not be a great 3-point shooter, Hart might not be a great 3-point shooter, but they're good enough that you should close out on them. And if you're having to close out from the other side of the court because you were playing gap coverage on them, that's just I just do think it was a bit of a bridge too far.
Hey, we saw that on the other end with Isaac Okoro. There was a time where he caught the ball. I think it was in the first half where the defender came flying out at him. He drove it. He kicked it to Javonte Green for an open 3. There's an instance where someone that the Knicks are probably comfortable with him taking 3-point shots. We saw that going back to the playoffs. But when you're that far off, those closeouts are not going to be on balance. You are susceptible to the drive and kick game. You are susceptible to overall defensive breakdowns as a result of that. So
I do think like Doris, I think, was the one who mentioned the contested shot in the first half for New York. And while I do think they were due for some regression, I do think a lot of that was like, not all contests are made the same, and
I didn't think the first quarter contests were good. I thought they were late. I didn't feel it. I felt like, we obviously don't have the tracking data yet, but I even though they weren't great shooters, and even though some of those shots were nonsense, I think it was Landry Shamet that hit like a drifting one going out of bounds. Josh Hart hit one in the second half over Sam Merrill, where it's like, okay, like you're throwing up a prayer. You're not a good shooter. Sam probably felt like Sammy Osman in that moment where the Josh Hart step back on that end of the court. But like you make your own luck to some extent. And my concern was when the offense started to get going in the first quarter, I thought we were going to take the lead. I still felt good about our ability to win it, particularly with the Knicks being on the second night of a back-to-back without Jalen Brunson and everything that they had going against them. I felt confident about that, but I was also sitting there annoyed, being like, they might have made it a little more difficult than it needed to be because they found a rhythm from three. They found their jump shot early. You're going to have tired legs, but if you see those first few shots go down in the second night of a back-to-back, that energy and hey, we actually do have a shot tonight, that little bit of adrenaline is going to give you a boost in those situations, particularly when it's a matchup where the Knicks really want to get a win. They know that they are completely winless against the Oklahoma City Thunder, Cavs, and Celtics. They were motivated. They felt like, hey, we have a chance to steal this one here. And I thought it really did, again, show a lot that the Cavs were able to start the adjustment prior to halftime in terms of effort, energy, defensive intensity, but then really go into half, understand what they were starting to do better, and then cranking that up to 12 and turning this into a comfortable win.
Yeah, it certainly helped that, Karl Anthony Towns has just never been able to help himself with fouls. He was really, really reckless yet again, and always is. There was even that play where he was taking it up and just stiff-armed Max as he was carrying the ball up and didn't get called for it.
There were like 3 or 4 that he easily could have been called for.
And OG, obviously, that's the risk you run a little bit when you're playing a hyper-physical defense, is you're going to get just called for some more handsy fouls. And you saw that in the second half of the Cavs. All the Cavs starters except Max had at least 3 fouls. Mobley picked up 4. Donovan picked up at least 2 just out on the perimeter, just being overly aggressive. But I do think that is the difference between the first half contests and the second half contests, is not only are you contesting the shot on release, you're contesting the process of the shot. You're contesting the pin down screen, you're contesting the catch, you're contesting the dribble, and you're contesting the shot. And that is the meaningful difference that the tracking data just isn't going to show you. Mm-hmm. Is that from the second OG Anunoby started his action to the time he got a shot attempt up, it was annoying and hard. And that is the difference between their second half effort. And that's why as much as I wanted to say, and I was seeing the same game you were, I was seeing a lot of really hard shots going in. I was seeing contested shots go in. I was seeing threes go in. I was seeing that Landry Shamet drifting corner 3. But I didn't love all the work on the road to the attempt quite as much, even if they were guarding the attempt. Whereas I just felt like at no point did Bridges, Anunoby, Hart, any of these guys really have their 2 feet under them comfortably and on balance on pretty much any of their attempts the entire final, let's say, 30 minutes of the game.
Yeah. I'm always going to believe your defense prior to the shot is much more impactful than the contest itself. Like you look at the offseason drills that these guys do in training and stuff like that. The trainer's usually standing there with a broom or something like that, you know, getting an extended hand up in the face or blocking your line of sight. It's the rhythm, right? Particularly when you're talking about basketball. It's all right. This is the combination of moves. This is my footwork to get into this shot. I know what to do from this distance, right? A bunch of these guys, I guarantee you tell them where they are on the court and you put a blindfold on them. They can probably get some shots in from you know those comfort zones for themselves. Someone like Lou Dort, who I think is one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. It's not because he's this big long guy, right? Like he's not the tallest player. He's like 6'3", probably tops, maybe 5-6 feet wide in terms of strength. He's built like a mini fridge. But what he does to get up into your space to disrupt your rhythm is what makes him such a menace defensively. That's what bothers Donovan Mitchell, because Donovan Mitchell can score over long defenders as well as anybody else. But it's that ability to really get up in your space. Tony Allen at 6'2", being one of the best Kevin Durant defenders that we've seen. It's because of the defense prior to the shot going up. And honestly, my annoyance with the first half, one, I just like it when the Cavs are up. So that's always going to be part of it. I was also sitting there being like, well, this is going to give some red meat to critics that are looking for reasons to pick apart the Cavs right now.
And here's what I'll say on that front. Sorry to interrupt. Like, this would be reasonable criticism. Yep. Like, we can't we couldn't go through the month of March and make all these caveats about rest and about the travel schedule, and then look at our listeners and our viewers with a straight face after 2 days off at home with a team coming off on a road back-to-back and be like, well, they just didn't have it tonight. I don't know, man.
Yeah, like, it's inexplicable, like, all those things that you were worried about are coming to fruition, and that's why they lost. But just write it off. That's not what I'm saying here. It's my frustration.
I know you weren't, but I'm just saying, like, I think I would have been really disappointed if the first half had continued. This was a game I thought they needed to show a strong performance in.
I think that was a good clarification by you, because that's definitely not what I meant by that. It's my frustration is when I'm sitting there, my thought was, God, we want a statement more than the Cavs want to make one right now, because the issues that they have, I think all of it is stuff that's correctable, right? Like when you talk about some of the struggles that they've had with defensive rebounding recently and giving up second chance opportunities, they've done it before this year. They've done it. They have held very good offensive rebounding teams off the glass. When you talk about, these turnovers that they're giving up to the Knicks, they had a low turnover game against the Oklahoma City Thunder on a national spotlight and won that game. They are capable of doing what they need to do to win versus any single team in the league. It just, in certain areas, there are structural weaknesses with the team because of the construction, just like any other team, and they can overcome it when the focus is there, when the effort is in the right places, and they are executing at a high level. And it did not seem like they came out with the, that level of focus and readiness really for this matchup. And I was sitting there, I'm like, God, and of course they're struggling in the ways that everyone that is looking for reasons to say that it's the same old Cavs is going to jump on. And you know what? They probably gave enough red meat in that first half that people who already feel that way are going to still be at that conclusion. It's going to be, you gave up 15 rebounds to the offensive rebounds to the Knicks. It goes to show you how tough they are. In comparison to the Cavs, there's going to be no mention of the fact that the Cavs had 15 offensive rebounds themselves, right? Like we get them by fluke. The other team gets it by heart and grit, and because we're soft, right? Like it was frustrating from that standpoint, and it was also frustrating because I felt like Evan Mobley did not have a good half defensively. I thought he got pushed off of his spot a few times. I thought there were other times where it was really bad perimeter defense and he was put in a tough spot. But some of those kind of one-on-one situations where, 6'9" Precious Achiuwa is moving him off of his spot, that was frustrating to me because I think that Evan Mobley deserves Defensive Player of the Year. And I can't believe that, if he has a bad game in a national spotlight, or if there is a week that isn't as strong, that's going to be outweighing an entire season of his portfolio. So that was driving me nuts. I was sitting here, fighting narratives in my head in the first half, but I did feel comfortable that they were going to come out and win. I was just impressed that they came out and won as comfortably as they did.
Yeah, again, it was a total answer to the physicality, a literal. I mean, you could just literally hold up a mirror from half to half and show the difference in terms of who was dictating the physicality terms, who was reaching and grabbing and bumping and annoying and like all the stuff that like I think like the Cavs aren't natural jerks to play against, like I think that but like I do think it was a nice statement of like, no, we can do this too, and we're better than you. So like we can muck up the game for you, and we don't think you can sustain that effort against us. So I just thought I was really impressed by that. I feel like I've seen this team answer that kind of hyper physicality in the past with cold precision.
Yeah.
Or fun offensive explosions. I don't know if I've seen them as much as I saw tonight actively decide, no, we're gonna rough you up.
Yep.
And I think we have to start the credit at when talking about individuals in this game with Isaac Okoro, who had maybe my favorite Okoro game of the season.
Yeah, you're right. I do think that in a lot of times this season, the Cavs have answered with precision. Sometimes you need that energy. Sometimes you need to dig deep. You need to, give that extra bit of effort and have some physicality. And I thought Isaac Okoro absolutely brought that to the table tonight. Honestly, it's one of my favorite Okoro games. He's had ones where he shot better from three. He was only 1 of 6 tonight, 5 of 10 from the field. But this is textbook example of how we have been saying we want to see Isaac Okoro used, how he can make an impact on the game against a team. You talk about the demons of the past and how people are going to put extra weight on this matchup against the Knicks. Isaac Okoro and how he performed against the Knicks coming off of that injury 2 years ago, that drew a lot of criticism. There was a lot of focus on how much attention they were giving to him. People were breaking out the rulers to see how much space they were sagging off of him. This is exactly how Isaac Okoro can make an impact on a game against a good team, even when the shot isn't falling. And I thought, generating the offensive rebounds, the steals, the playmaking out of the short roll. This is the hustle stats. This is the, filling the box score. This is the activity that we need to see from Isaac Okoro. And that's ultimately going to buy him more minutes. Because if he's playing like this, if the motor is running like this, that's that Josh Hart type impact coming in off the bench that can swing a playoff game.
One of my absolute favorite plays of the game for him was when he caught the long rebound at like the free throw line or like near the top of the arc, and he turns and he realizes in the immediate moment that all 4 Knicks are at his level or below the free throw line, and the only person in his way is Karl Anthony Towns. And it was one of those interesting plays because I feel like Isaac always has been a really strong transition player. He's always been willing to push an attack, but normally it's like he catches the ball on the move and attacks, or gets an outlet and is moving. The fact that he kind of rebounded with the facing the rim, facing his own rim, pivoted, was like, oh wait, I got daylight, baby, and just attacks and gets the layup. And Towns immediately knew he was in huge trouble. And started backpedaling as fast as Karl Anthony Towns can backpedal, which ain't that fast. And and like I just really loved that assertiveness, that vision, that feel for like the moment of like, oh wait, I've got a runway here, and I'm not in a perfect sprinting rhythm already, but I'm going to attack. I'm going to get the defense backpedaling, and I'm going to get us a clean look right now. It just felt like another one of those moments where the Cavs were taking it to New York. And, you know, I felt like Okoro was the most emblematic of that.
Yeah,
sentiment.
and that finish in transition was one of my favorite finishes that he's had. Obviously, my favorite is the one against the Houston Rockets where he just dunked on the entire team. But like the touch, the control, like I love seeing that from him, and I love seeing him be this active. Not only because he tipping balls to generate second chance opportunities and doing those kind of impact plays and the 50-50 stuff that makes such a big difference. But what I love about him being on the move is I feel like he is such an intelligent player and makes such smart reads on the move. He just doesn't have an advanced enough dribble to generate those opportunities for himself a lot of the time. So when he's catching it and, all right, I've caught the ball on the cut, I can take 2 strides and go up for a dunk. Or if the help defense is coming here, I'm going to make the right read. I'm going to dump it off to Jarrett Allen or Evan Mobley, or I'm going to kick it out to 3. He can make reads, not just, oh, okay, well, there's who's in the dunker spot. He'll make some like cross court, really, really nice passes in those situations. So getting him on the move, finding him, on the cut with how many intelligent passers the Cavs have up and down the lineup, it's just a perfect use of him. So I was really, really excited to see him come out and have the type of game that he has had. I've really liked his minutes recently. And
so was Kenny. He got asked in post-game about, who's really impressing you with their form heading into the postseason. And Kenny's first answer was Okoro. And, talked about kind of the lull he had, just about a month ago, where, and Kenny didn't say this, but where Okoro was coming back from that shoulder injury and the jumper wasn't right, and the impact was really, really not where it needed to be, and he wasn't getting a lot of run. And it just kind of feels like he's been chipping away at getting more and more minutes and earning his way into more of these lineups where, in kind of proving that, like, hey, I don't need to, hit my 2 threes to justify my existence out here. I'm helpful anyway. And I thought it was very noteworthy that Okoro was the first guy that Kenny mentioned when he was asked about who's showing you that they're in good form right now, especially since I think both me and you have wondered if he was going to be the 10th guy in that playoff rotation.
And he very well may still be heading into the playoffs. And Kenny's talked about how he still anticipates going 10 deep going into the playoffs. But that can get trimmed. That can who is where in the rotation can change based on matchups and based on performance. The most important thing, if you're a reserve in the NBA, is reliability in terms of what you're bringing to the table. And if Isaac Okoro, we know what Dean can bring to the table. We know what DeAndre Hunter is going to bring to the table. What Sam Merrill is going to bring. If Isaac Okoro can, really solidify that, hey, when you put me in, you're getting effort. You're getting blunt force basketball out here. You're getting someone that's going to do all the dirty work and really kind of give that maximum effort. He's going to give himself opportunities to play, man. Like sometimes that's exactly what's required, but sometimes, maximum effort isn't what's required. And you can use tools like Zoom AI Companion to help you out, because only you can do your best work. Zoom AI Companion can help you do the rest, like automatically taking notes, answer meeting questions, and helping you respond to your coworker. Available at no additional cost with the eligible paid plans. Work happy with Zoom AI Companion.
Oh, Isaac Okoro. What a cool run, I feel like in years past, it's been one of those things where, oh no, Isaac's going the wrong way. We're getting near the postseason. Are we going to be able to count on him? And, I do feel like he's really, really showing his value, especially. And I think both me and you really, really feel this way. I don't want to speak for you too much, but I feel like of the two of us, you've always been the higher one on Isaac. I've always been a little bit more skeptical, or had more questions. But I think both of us agree that after the DeAndre Hunter trade, Isaac's role became much more clear and his value became much more important to the team. Not just because they did a consolidation trade, but just because of the things that at his best Isaac does really, really well and how that plugs in with the rest of the team. So I don't know. I would love to see him earn that 8th, 9th man in the rotation in the postseason by having more games like this.
And I think this is one of the things that we've learned through this regular season, right? Like ultimately the Cavs goals are going to be, whether or not this is a successful season is going to be defined by the postseason, but there are things that you learn along the way in the regular season. And I think one of the questions that we've had for Isaac Okoro the last couple of years that I think we've learned now during this regular season is, hey, he's had stretches where he's not, he looks out of rhythm, and then he usually ends up in the starting lineup, and he usually ends up playing a whole bunch, and he usually ends up playing really well in those minutes, and those lineups work really well. And our question has been, well, is this someone that can't kind of make that transition to being a role guy and have the same kind of impact? Is this a situation where he really needs to have enough minutes to get himself comfortable?
Which we might not be able to get him.
Or is it about having a defined role where he understands exactly what's being asked of him when he's in the starting lineup? And if you were to give him 18 minutes a night coming in off the bench, but he knows exactly where he's supposed to be, he's used more creatively. He's not just sat in the corner as a spot up guy, and it's about whether or not he hits 1 or 2 shots in a game in terms of offensive impact. If he's used in a more creative way, if he's given that structure and there is clarity of role, can he be someone that makes an impact? And I think that we have learned in this regular season that, yes, that is in fact the case. He seems to not only be comfortable in this role, he seems to be growing within it. I really think that he is becoming stronger and stronger as a short roll passer. I think his cuts have looked better. I think he understands the spacing of the team and where he's able to take advantage of those opportunities. I think he's always had a good sense of where those passing lanes are. And I just feel really, really good about, his trajectory at this point, because I've continued to hammer this point. I think sometimes it gets overlooked because he came out a year earlier, but he is in fact the same age as Evan Mobley. Like, I don't think he has Evan Mobley upside, obviously. People might still hold his draft slot against him. I will continue to say, we did not do that with Tristan Thompson. And in a lot of ways, Isaac Okoro reminds me of a wing Tristan Thompson in terms of his ability to complete lineups, to do the dirty work, to be an impactful defender that can defend multiple positions. And I think for a team that is as deep and talented as this Cavs team is, where we have, 3 guys probably in contention for all NBA. We have 4 guys that are all-star caliber. We have 2 guys that are 2 of the top 3 6-man of the year candidates. We have Max Strus, who's a terrific starter. That is 7 guys I've named already. Most teams don't have 7 guys that they feel really, really confident in. And we still have guys like Dean Wade, who has made a consistent impact when he's available. Sam Merrill has had a very good season. Isaac Okoro is, a 24-year-old glue guy that's still getting better. I'm very excited about the fact that we still have him locked up for the next few years and what he can do growing alongside these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you're still seeing the little bits and pieces of growth. I'll bet he didn't have 20 possessions in his career before this season as the roll man in the pick and roll. And yeah, it's funny. Those B-ball index metrics, you never really know what goes into them. Some of them are a little black boxy. But they posted a, screening talent ranking, and Okoro was like 2nd or 3rd. And
he was
like
2nd.
And I'm not surprised.
Which I don't know how you measure screening talent. Like, I understand. I understand what you're doing as a role man, but just quality of screens. I feel like he's a very good screener, so it matches my eye test.
Yeah, well, I also would imagine part of it is like it's just a very small sample, and they've been very successful in that small sample, But like, you really do see like that empty side pick and roll where he can kind of just see, it's kind of between a screen and a slip, where he seals the other defender kind of on his back hip, and he's just so big and strong. I mean, he's always been a good finisher at the rim by percentage. That with an empty weak side or a rumbling Evan or Jarrett, either in the dunker spot or coming in from the elbow extended for a dump off, like I just feel like his reads get really really easy. The size and the touch are there for him. He doesn't really have to rely on his handle because it's just 2-3 dribble, a dribble or two at most, and then step pass or step layup, and the reads are just right there in front of him. And I think it's really hard for teams to deal with because of how well the Cavs are constructed in terms of their shooting on the other side of the floor. The cheat options just aren't as obvious.
Yeah. And I think too often we make the assumption that someone is a finished product. Like, Donovan Mitchell is a great example. He was a hell of a player when he came to Cleveland. He has gotten consistently better these last 3 years. Like I thought he was tremendous again tonight. It really feels like he's rounding into form. I feel great about how he's playing, but he has continued to grow his understanding of the game. The nuances, his vision as a passer, what he's done as a defensive player. Like he has continuously gotten better. And I was just thinking, next year, when we go into next season, Carter, Darius is going to be the same age Donovan was when he spent his first year in Cleveland. Like, we think of Darius as a finished product, but in all likelihood, as he enters his physical prime over the next 3-4 years, he's going to get better. Look how much, there's an opportunity for Isaac Okoro to get better. There is an opportunity, obviously, for Evan Mobley to get better, who, when he's putting it together and you see these stretches, I'm like, yeah, there's that path to be a top 10, top 5 player in the NBA without a shadow of a doubt. Like, I feel confident about it. And then, I think the poster child for this conversation is someone like Jarrett Allen, who, when he came to Cleveland, seemed like as finished of a product as it comes for a big man, but it's the nuances. It's everything else he's added to his game. He is just a smarter, better player than he's ever been. And, I think it's important when we talk about our concerns, when we say things that we're nervous about, and we say, we got to give the Cavs the benefit of the doubt, that they know what's best physically and things like that. I think we got to do that with Jarrett, because I was worried with him playing with that hand wrap. It's been off for the last few games. Wondering, okay, well, could he benefit from some time off, or is this something that it could get worse with playing? It does not look like it got worse through playing. He's not playing with the wrap anymore. And when you look at it, man, 21 of his last 23 shots have gone in. Jarrett Allen has been awesome. He has been awesome, in a matchup against Zubac. He's been awesome now in a matchup against Karl Anthony Towns. He put him down into the front row, which was tremendous. Jarrett Allen has been balling his butt off, and it has been a lot of fun to watch.
I'll do you one better, brother. He's 31 of 34 from the field in his last 3 home games.
Oh my God.
Because that Spurs game, he also went 10 of 11 from the field.
This seems pretty good. This is getting back to that stretch where he had more blocks than missed shots.
Oh, that was a lot of fun. You don't need too many blocks, honestly, in that stretch to get there. Yeah, he's just been unbelievable. Another really, really great game. I loved another guy who really answered the bell from a physicality perspective. Every Karl Anthony Towns catch was contested, and he really made him square up and fight to catch it, fight to get squared up, fight to attack. And Towns had a really ugly second half, honestly. He had 7 turnovers in this game. He certainly made a few buckets, but like overall was not the level of impactful he was in the first half. Didn't, most of his buckets were tip-in buckets. Wasn't able to they didn't have to send help, so he wasn't able to really create for others, which is really important for them without Brunson there. Just overall, I thought Jarrett handily outplayed Towns in this one, and, in that construct.
Yeah, I totally agree.
There's just no shot.
I thought Jarrett was terrific. I thought Mobley, I mentioned that I didn't love his first half. I thought his second half was a lot better. Still would have liked to have seen a more assertive game from him. I thought he was floating a little bit, but he made some really great plays defensively, and I felt his impact more in the second half. Great stat from the broadcast where the Knicks had won 71 straight games when they went up by 15. Not only did the Knicks not win this game, they lost by 20. So that was pretty fun. That's a pretty fun way to kill a very, very impressive streak. Should have said this at the top, but the Cavs have won 61 games. Their magic number to clinch the number one seed in the Eastern Conference is now down to 2, as the Boston Celtics lost at home to the Miami Heat. It's probably worth noting they only have to win one more game against the East, because Boston got another loss against the Eastern Conference while the Cavs got a win. They do play 2 teams from the West in San Antonio and the Sacramento Kings, so it's very possible that the magic number kicks in before that East number does. But they have pretty much locked up that number one seed. Carter, 61 wins, ties the second highest mark in Cavs franchise history. Pop quiz: do you know who is starting for the 61 Cavaliers?
I do, because I watch Twitter. You just want to tell everyone?
Okay.
Sorry.
Mo Williams, who I loved. Absolutely love Mo Williams. Anthony Parker, who I really, came just a couple years too late. I loved him as a 3-and-D wing. I thought he did a lot of good things in Toronto. Wasn't as great in Cleveland, but, he had his moments. LeBron James, of course. J.J. Hickson and Shaquille O'Neal.
I'll tell you what. LeBron James was really good back then. That would be my takeaway.
That's part of it. I will argue, I think the pieces fit really well in those 66, 61 win teams. I think sometimes when we look back at it, we forget about how good certain role players were. I think it also matters that, teams overall just weren't as good.
Yep.
I think the overall standard for what a role player needs to do in today's game is so much higher than it was back then that sometimes, we discredit those teams a little too much. But yeah, that's quite a trip down memory lane.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of these teams that are like play-in quality teams, and today, and I'm like, man, that team would be a 5 seed. Think about those Gilbert Arenas Wizards teams. Those feel like they would be like 11, 12, 13 seed teams in the modern NBA, just because everyone is so freaking good up and down the roster. Gosh, that team also had a Cavs legend, Leon Poe. I loved Leon Poe. That was my first sports autograph. Really? Mine was Darnell Jackson.
That season was the first time that I ever got to see the Cavs play live. That early season game against Minnesota. Unfortunately, Delonte was suspended for it. I really wanted to see Delonte, but Leon Poe wasn't active, but he was walking out of the tunnel, so I got him to sign my Minnesota Timberwolves game ticket, because that was the only thing I had on me to sign.
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, that was fun. But it felt great, to get this win against the Knicks. Again, it does still feel like the Cavs just kind of want to get to the playoffs. I think there's been issues getting up for some of these games and giving a full 48 minutes. I thought they gave a full 48 against the Clippers. Tonight, I'd probably say, maybe around 36. The Cavs were really looking like themselves. But it hasn't shaken my confidence in what this team can be. I think that what they are and what they're capable of accomplishing is right there on the surface. I think it's really clear. I love the fact that both the guards have been playing better lately. Jarrett's been looking really good. Evans looked really good.
Darius was really, Darius had a quiet game, but he was the reason. Obviously, I don't want to take credit away from Jarrett, who did all the scoring, but yeah. I felt like Darius was the engine for why the game got out of hand in the fourth quarter. It was just clean look every single possession down the floor, and it was him orchestrating, just torturing poor Karl Anthony Towns in the pick and roll. He
got everywhere.
That button was available to them whenever they wanted.
he got anywhere he wanted the entire night. Like I thought, whether it was DeLon Wright on him, whether it was Mikal Bridges, no matter who the matchup was, I thought he did a really good job getting into the paint, generating good looks for himself and others. Nice to see, the finishing was there, the floaters were dropping. I thought there was a lot of passes that led to, the pass that got the assist. I just thought it was a really, really good game from him, and Donovan was phenomenal. Like, we probably should have talked about him earlier in the podcast. Maybe this is one of those instances where we take how great he is for granted. But I really thought that Donovan was terrific tonight.
Yeah, he just I thought his control of the game was just really, really strong.
Yeah.
It was I'm gonna walk to my spots kind of night for him.
And understanding the moment too. Like you could tell, like he felt when that momentum was going. He's playing to the crowd. Like he understood the moment the entire night, and those big kind of momentum swing shots, he seemed to hit all of them.
And I love that he picked up those 2 fouls in the third quarter of like,
yeah.
I'm going to be too rough at the point of attack. I'm going to be too rough riding, Bridges or Anunoby going around. Also really liked the play where Anunoby was trying to post him and he kind of just stonewalled him right on the block. Used that length, used his core strength to not move, and forced up an ugly miss for Anunoby. I thought he was really, really tough tonight. And was one of the guys who I thought most, I thought him and Max were the guys who really jumped out at me as like we're gonna rough him up in the second half. Max's first half shift I thought was really rough, but the second half I thought, he came out and really showed some of that toughness and physicality, and alongside Donnie, and they both answered the bell.
Yeah. For first half, the starters were outscored by 8, minus 80 net rating, according to Pivot Fade. Second half, they outscored the Knicks by 10 with a plus 91 net rating, so a lot better for that starting lineup. We also got 5 minutes of the core 4 along with DeAndre Hunter, which was really nice to see. They outscored the Knicks by 8 in those minutes. So, nice to get a little bit of run there. Coming into this game, I was looking at the cleaning the glass possession stats, and the core 4 with Sam Merrill had played 1 possession fewer than the core 4 with DeAndre Hunter. As Kenny Atkinson said recently to Jackson Flickinger, that grouping with DeAndre Hunter is something that he wanted to see a little bit more of down the stretch, even though there isn't many games. So it's nice to see, another 5 minutes of that group not only playing well together, but, getting some run and getting it done against a good team.
Yeah, they played very, very well. They got into the paint really well. I know we're kind of doing a little bit of a box score recap right now, but I also thought Hunter.
It ties into our macro thoughts we've been talking about.
I thought Hunter had an excellent game, and he didn't have an eye-popping box score. 16 points on 6 of 11 from the field, 2 of 5 from 3. He hit those 2 important threes just to keep us connected in the first half. Only 2 boards, no assists, 1 steal. So you go, wow, was it just kind of an empty calories game? And I don't think so. I thought he was generally very, very helpful on the defensive end of the ball. I thought his drives, I really liked his commitment to getting all the way to the cup on his drives tonight. A couple really nice, you're closing out on me and I'm going to go all the way and either, draw
there was
some
that
contract.
One where Precious fouled the hell out of him and he didn't get to the line. I couldn't believe that one.
Yeah, but I just liked his process attacking the hoop a lot tonight. Yeah. I think sometimes he goes to that floater a little, he leans on that floater when he just really should take that one extra step and use all that length to generate a cleaner angle to finish. And I thought he really did a nice job of that tonight.
Yeah, I thought those 2 threes that he hit in the first quarter were incredibly important, right? Early game scoring often feels more significant than it is, right? When you're down 12 to 4, it feels like it's an insurmountable mountain at times when it's really just an 8-point game. But hitting those shots on the other end and cutting into that deficit can make a big difference. And I think, it's one of the reasons why it was so important that they went out and got DeAndre Hunter, because having someone that can hit those shots that isn't, Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell, or even Max Strus, who can be a bit of a streaky shooter. I think it's so important to have another guy like that that's going to be able to hit shots even when the offense isn't clicking at the highest level. When we didn't really get the defense in a rotation, it's a bit of a late contest, but you got a high release. You're a confident shooter in these spots, and we trust you to knock it down. Having another guy like that is just so important. That's one of those elements that they just did not have in previous playoff series.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta hang on for dear life, and guys like DeAndre Hunter will help you do that.
Absolutely. And sometimes teams are going to punch you in the mouth. That doesn't mean you can't come back and punch them right back. As I said at the top, 15 offensive rebounds for the Knicks, 15 for the Cavs. They won the turnover battle, 14-13, despite their early turnovers, and they won the points in the paint battle, 64-52. They outworked the Knicks in the second half, and in my opinion, outworked them overall. Really, really nice to see them answer the bell in that way.
Yeah, and I don't want to over-index. Again, Knicks in the second half of a back-to-back, no Brunson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's why I think like the vibe and the energy is what matters to me a lot more than the result. And I was proud of their the intentionality with which they answered that bell.
Totally agree. And winning in multiple ways is important. Last time that we played them with Jalen Brunson, we smoked them with execution, right? Like we picked them apart offensively. It was methodical. We beat them by 40. It felt great. Winning, through physicality in this matchup, that feels pretty good as well, especially for a Cavs team that hasn't been playing their best basketball as of late. But Magic number down to 2. Cavs on the verge of locking up the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. Really excited to see what they do against the Spurs and Kings. We will be podcasting after that Kings game on Sunday. Big thanks to everyone that tuned in live on YouTube. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, send me a screenshot of the review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.